Welcome back, everybody. Hot Mic rolls on a busy Thursday morning. Much more on the Lee Corso retirement news coming. We'll play his couple trips to Fargo coming up later on in the show. Those were for people that either don't know or forgot or weren't here. We'll show that to you coming up later on in the show. Mentioned yesterday when we were on the air, the news broke that Minot High boys basketball has a new head coach, for a familiar name for those that follow North Dakota basketball in our area, who's been moonlighting in college hoops the last couple of years and now back on a boys' sideline this coming winter. Jeremy Brandt will be taking over for Dean Winchesky at Minot, and he joins us on the show this morning. We were just visiting off air. You got your toes dipped into the college basketball waters. What'd you make of where things are at in college hoops right now?
Well, it's really, I don't know. I think crazy is, best way to describe it. I don't go up to Minot State every day, but I was up there Saturday and, visiting with Coach Merkin and our GA a little bit. And yeah, every day, every hour, it seems like something new is happening, or somebody goes in or somebody commits, and then it just changes the landscape for a lot of other guys as well. So yeah, I don't know. There just seems like there needs to be some rules or something put in place to just calm the storm a little bit. I would not want to be a college basketball coach right now because the mood swings have got to be unbelievable.
You were part of, obviously, a dynamite historic run at Minot State. We had Coach Merkin on a handful of times. Jeremy, tell me about being a part of that, making it to the NCAA tournament, your son being there, what that experience was like this past year.
Well, it was kind of we had a great start to the season. I think we were 17 or 18-0.
Yeah.
And then we went through a stretch there where we got into the kind of the thick of the NSIC schedule, and we got on the road a little bit, and we had a couple long road trips, consecutive ones there. And we ended up losing 3 of 4. And, we had a spurt there. We were about 500, and then we got back on a little roll there at the end of the season. Right before the NSIC tournament, I thought we kind of maybe started to play close to what we had early in the season. And then we were able to carry that through the tournament, obviously, and, ran into a good Moorhead team in the championship game. But, we really cemented our place in the NCAA tournament with those first 2 wins. And, and then to get to go to Kansas City was, for all of our guys, for everybody involved, it was quite an experience and a great way to finish up the season, a great opportunity.
To see that the level of support too. I mean, there were a ton of fans I saw down in Sioux Falls. More followed you to Kansas City. You know how great an area Minot is for with how much they love basketball. What did that mean to see that kind of support?
Well, I mean, yeah, I forget, they kept putting the miles distance from Sioux Falls on the screen at the NSIC tournament. And, we're by quite a bit.
Yeah.
Obviously Mary is a ways away too, but we're a good 500 miles from Sioux Falls. To see the fans that we had there was quite impressive. In fact, it was kind of interesting because I drove down by myself then the day after the team left, because I'm limited with my days off. And so I communicate with my wife and daughter back here in Minot, and I was checking my school emails, and the sub list came out, and my wife was on that list, and I thought, that's interesting. I wonder what she's doing. Well, I started tracking her on my iPhone, and here her and my daughter were trying to surprise us by driving down to Sioux Falls on the last day. So, awesome. But like I said, it kind of stumbled across it accidentally, so I knew they were coming. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, we had great representation from Minot, and to kind of go where no Minot State team had gone was obviously was a factor in that as well. Yeah. But it was sure a lot of fun. I think our guys really had a blast, and I know we as a coaching staff did as well.
We had visited when you decided to step away from Beulah. I know coaching never gets out of your blood; it's part of you. Was this just the right place, right time, opportunity now with Minot High?
For me, it's the timing has been such an important part of everything that I've kind of fallen into, I guess, if you will, or things that have happened to me. In this case, the timing wasn't perfect, with Trey having 2 years left, but the other, being an assistant coach, Dom, was hard for me. Yeah. I'd never been one before. And I struggled with some things that maybe because I'm set in my ways, it wasn't, and that part wasn't easy. And then probably what made it even the harder was the fact that having a job away from Minot State, and then just going and showing up for practice, not being there all day. And I just felt like a lot of days I was out of the loop, and it was to nobody's fault. It was just, it just, that's the way it was, and so that part even made it harder. And that was probably the most difficult part of the last 2 years, is just showing up for practice and then trying to get on the same,
Same page.
Up to date or with everybody. And then, a lot of our road games, the teams would leave on Thursday morning. Well, I would wait till Thursday night or Friday morning. And I drove to just about every road game we had. So I remember Wayne, Nebraska. I left Thursday night after school. I got to Fargo and stayed with our GA's mom, dad in Moorhead, which, so Jacob's dad is actually the general manager of the Fargo Dome.
Yep.
I stayed at their place, and then I was in Wayne by 10:30 on, Friday morning. And then the thing is, Dom, what made it worse was our roads were so poor coming home a lot of those nights. I mean, I was driving 8-9 hours home in horrible road conditions, and that got old in a hurry too. So, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't trade it for nothing. I really enjoyed what I did. And obviously being able to spend that more time with Trey was a big deal for me as well.
Was that almost considered a bonus? Because I think after you were done, I mean, his done in high school and you done, I mean, the last couple of years be a bonus for each of you guys?
Oh, absolutely. We started kind of poking around up here as far as job hunting after Trey graduated, and my wife is a special ed teacher, so she can go wherever she wants. There just didn't happen to be a job open for me in the Minot Publics at that time. So, and it worked out great for me to stay in Beulah for another year. We had a phenomenal team and, had a good run that year. And then the next year, it just so happened that there was a job for both of us here. So again, back to timing, so we were able to move up here. And then, in the process, about the time we were ready to interview, I was visiting with H. Hendrickson, who was the assistant at Minot State at the time. And then it kind of came up that they were kind of looking for somebody. And then that kind of came to fruition where I was able to join the staff for those 2 years. And so, yeah, like I said, timing has been everything for us and our family.
So now this job open, knowing the success at Minot, there's inherent pressure. There is at almost every job. Minot's a different level. Tell me about accepting that and knowing full well what you're walking into to be the head coach at Minot High.
Well, I might not be the smartest guy in the world that I'm taking over for, obviously, two legends, look at the success that Gene and Dean have had, but also, Lee Timmerman sent me a text yesterday and we kind of conversed back and forth a little bit, but, I think this is the second time this job's been open in 40 some years.
Right.
So, they haven't had very many coaches here. There's a lot of history and tradition at this place. And, and that, I think that's pretty cool, to have the opportunity to take over something like this is for me, I just, that was definitely a part of it. And then my son he really pushed me. Trey really encouraged me to do it. I kept thinking, I'm going to, if I do take it or do end up getting the job, I'm going to be up at Minot High in the gym. You're going to be in Minot State on a Friday night. And I'm going to be thinking, God, I wish I was up at the game, but he really encouraged me to do it. And which I'm glad he did. And he's really on board with it. So yeah, it was not an easy decision, but obviously there was a lot of things that factored into, and I had a good conversation with Dean too after the WDA tournament, and we visited about a lot of things. So, in fact, I visited with him this morning. I'm going to have a lot of questions and really lean on him for some things as well.
North Dakota, as you well know, is shockingly different basketball-wise. Since there's 3 classes now, when you left, there were 2. Tell me about the adjustment of going to the top level and coaching in that division.
Well, that, and that's kind of another thing that attracted me. I was texting with a friend again about, I started out in Sherwood where there was 40 some kids in high school, they hadn't won a game the year before I started coaching there, and we got to the regional tournament, I think once in the 5 years. And we, I think we got up to 500 at our record was at one time. And then, I got to coach at 2 middle division schools in Botno. And then Beulah was, I can't say enough about great things about Beulah, how they treated us. And I loved my time there. If it wasn't for family and my wife, I'd probably still be there. Yep. But, this has worked out well for us as well. But yeah, and then get the opportunity to go to the highest level. There was definitely a pull there for me as well to be able to have coached at a really small school to the highest level now is something that it certainly had an attraction for sure.
Getting back in, Jeremy, knowing the level of talent, especially in the WDA on a nightly basis, where you're facing Darren Mattern at Century, Wilhelm at Bismarck. What excites you about those kind of nightly battles you're going to have now?
Well, that's going to be the challenge, obviously, Dom, is, there's obviously some very, very good coaches in this league. And I've followed it for a long time, just being in North Dakota, and know some of those guys. Played college basketball against Darren. In fact, played high school basketball against Darren Mattern when he was at Surrey and I was at Newburgh.
That's
so
fantastic.
We go back a long ways, and then he moved to Minnesota. But those guys put a lot of time in. I know they work with their athletes a bunch, and they know the game very well. They have a lot of experience playing and coaching. So every night is going to be a challenge. I think that's something that I'm really looking forward to. I'm very excited about the opportunity, and again, I know a lot of those guys already, so to be able to compete against them again is going to be, I think it's going to be fun.
So you got out, so I can ask you this now that you're back in. The thoughts of 3 classes now, because Beulah's in the middle one. How did you think it's gone so far?
I like it. I was for it when it happened, or before it happened, and I think it's been a good thing. It's given a lot more kids the opportunity to get to a state tournament. In a way, I think it's, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but it's maybe watered it down a little bit. It just, I don't think you're seeing as many competitive games in the regional tournaments, and maybe until that championship night, or that, that playing thing, I think is tremendous.
Awesome. It's really good. I'm with you there.
Game, I think is the best thing that could have happened. I mean, it's great, but I just, I see teams that, I remember Kildare, they weren't for it in our region. But I look back and think, I don't know that they would have been in the state tournament the last 2 years if it was just 2 classes. And, and Beulah last year for sure would not have made the state tournament, if it was 2 classes. So it's definitely opening things up and giving more teams, more kids an opportunity to play in the state tournament. So I think it's a good thing. And there's going to be some things that they'll tweak and make better as the years move on as well.
I think you and I have had this conversation on this show where there have been certain regions, you were in one of them, where you could probably rubber stamp who's going to be in the region championship in November. Like, why even play that? Like, you knew who was going to be there.
For sure. And, in our region was a great example, because we had the real small schools, and then we had kind of the bigger powerhouses, if you want to call them, with, the Trinity, us, Hazen. So our region, I thought, was a good example of why we needed that 3-class system. And, and a lot of the teams, I think, are, at least the smaller schools, especially, were for it. So I like it.
Tell me, before I let you go, emotions when you get ready for game 1 in late November, early December, being back as head coach. What's going to go through your mind?
Well, I was just looking at the schedule. We're actually in Fargo, I think, at Cheyenne and West Fargo.
There you go.
First 2 games. There's going to be a lot of nervous energy, John. And there always has been for me, before a game. When that stops, and it's probably time for me to quit. But I just, I'm going to meet with, I think all the assistant coaches that Dean had are going to stay on, which is, I'm really glad. I think that's going to be great for me. But there's going to be some nervous energy, but I'm really looking forward to it. And, I really enjoy not only practice, but I do enjoy the games as well, and that competitive part. So yeah, it's going to be different for sure, but I'm really looking forward to getting going now, and we're starting to put a summer schedule together as well. So it's going to be exciting.
It's great to have you back on a high school basketball sideline. Congratulations, bud. Thanks so much for the time. We'll catch up down the road. Okay.
Hey, sounds good. I got to give a shout out, Dom. My daughter got engaged Tuesday.
Oh, wow. Holy cow.
They were down in Arizona, and she gets home from Arizona, and we're sitting on the couch last night, and she goes, and my wife's getting texts from people that don't have my number saying congratulations. And she says, Dad, why do you always have to steal my thunder? She says. So I got to give a shout out to Hannah today. As she's got a new fiance now, and
fantastic.
So that's pretty exciting. A lot of good things happening with our family right now.
That's fantastic. Well, congratulations, doubly wide over there. You got to prep for a wedding now as well. Thanks for the time, bud. Be well.
Thank you, Dom. You too.
There goes Jeremy Brandt, head coach now of Minot High, as he takes over for Dean Wenchesky. How about that? Think about it with that stat. They've had 2 head coaches in 47 years. We have the legend in Gene Manson, another legend in Wenchesky, won 6 state titles, and now that's what Jeremy Brandt's walking into now at Minot. We appreciate his time there. We'll break, we come back, wrap up our first hour. Got a bunch of emails coming in on Coach Corso as well, and a big second hour plan on a suddenly busy Thursday. Hot Mike, back after